crucial. The detective explained what would happen next. Jade was being held on charges of reckless endangerment and destruction of property. The value of the destroyed insulin alone made it a felony, combined with the deliberate withholding of life-saving. She faced serious consequences. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I looked at my parents, saw their devastated faces, and nodded again. After he left, the silence returned heavier than before. Dad finally stopped pacing and sat in the other chair. He reached for my hand, it gently. His calloused fingers trembled slightly. Mom moved to sit on the bed's edge, careful not to disturb the IV line. Jade's diary months ago, but dismissing it as teenage dramatics, about the warning signs they'd ignored, choosing to believe her performances rather than face the ugly truth about how they'd failed both their daughters in different ways. Their words came out jumbled, interrupted by tears and long pauses. A social worker visited next. She was, how are we doing? Feel better?
1622.
Sorry?
1622. Never again.
Owen handed the documents to the old man for his signature and asked which funeral home he would choose. The old man wasn't quite sure, saying his church would probably know. The old man wanted to come back the next morning to fill out the information. Owen agreed, asking if there was anything else he could help with. The old man said he didn't have a car. He had come with his loved one in the ambulance. Owen was ready to call a taxi for the old man. The old man declined, only asking Owen to tell him where he could catch a ride. Owen gave the old man directions.
How badly do you want it? Did you bring your mouse? You better bring your mouse. And then there's only one question. Is this working? There's only one question. Is this guy doing work or... My other thought is he's going over fancy football trip. Which, it could be working, you know.
My girlfriend Rainy. Who's the stupidest person you've ever met? This girl in my college chemistry lab who thought she could steal my research. We were lab partners for the semester, and I'd been working on the synthesis experiment for weeks. She barely showed up, always on her final update.
My wife said she'd frame me for SA after I discovered her affair, so I installed cameras around the house to catch her in the act and put everything in court. My wife's parents wanted her out of their house immediately. She tried to backpedal, but my in-laws said they did not update and put everything in court. My wife's parents wanted her out of the house immediately. She tried to backpedal, but my in-laws said they did not raise her to be a selfish, cheating woman that would try to frame her own husband, and she was no longer their daughter. They disowned her over the phone right then and there, and then hung up before my wife could say anything else. She tried to call back, but they ignored her every attempt, and when they got home, not only was she gone, but she destroyed several things around their house, which my mother-in-law was in tears about. I still consider my ex-parents my in-laws.
When did you realize you married a monster? My husband Lewis had always been the perfect guy. Sweet, attentive, never raised his voice. We'd been married.
A black doctor tried to help a wounded clerk stop the bleeding. A cop mistook him for the robber. He had only come to buy milk. When the doctor approached the injured clerk, pointed to the first cop, realized he had shot the doctor lay on the ground and gravely wounded by police. They filed a lawsuit against the white officer. The shooting of the black doctor spread across the entire city. The white cop became the target of public outrage. To ease the pressure, his powerful father held a public apology, trying to shift the blame. But the black crowd in the audience wouldn't listen. They raised their fists in protest. In the end, the apology ended with the white cop found not guilty. The husband decided to sue again. The white officer was already back at work. A black doctor tried.
How much does Kai Cenat make per individual stream? I'm gonna say he makes like $100,000. Okay, might seem outrageous, but
What happened on your worst date? I was 17, saved up for months to take this girl to a nice steakhouse. On my dad's best shirt, got a haircut.
Homer is watching a pirated movie, but Marge thinks this is stealing, so she wrote Jack and an apology letter. The movie company is shocked when they receive it and contact the FBI to plan an arrest. They destroy Homer's popcorn. Homer is stunned that someone would snitch, but then he gets arrested. Bart takes the chance to turn on the movie. To avoid watching the pirated film, the soldiers all cover their ears and put on sunglasses. But unfortunately, the captain dodges and destroys the computer. Homer is too fat. He tries to escape, but gets caught and brought back. As Homer is being taken away, he tells Marge to find out who the snitch is. Forever! Homer gets put in prison clothes. He sits in a van with a bunch of criminals. When they learn Homer watched pirated movies, they get really angry. They're ready to teach Homer a lesson. When Homer wakes up, he sees a train coming toward him, but Homer's belly is stuck. Luckily, this train heading to passing through. Homer jumps on board. Bart and Lisa are discussing who the snitch might be. Marge feels really embarrassed. She grabs his pacifier. Homer is watching a...
So what happens when you violate a female prison guard in juvenile detention?
We had a 13-year-old kid on day who was from Troy. He was a mouthy kid, man. I mean, he violated everyone. And he took him under his wing and said, look, this is This is not how you act around here. We want to tight ship. We're going to get your stuff together. And he violated a female CO. And there are rules, even in juveniles. You don't mess with a female CO. And I remember clear as day, I was working in the central unit watching cameras. This kid sitting there talking to a staff member, and this 18-year-old comes up behind him, just rocks him in the face, completely knocks him out of the chair, unconscious, and starts beating the shit out of him. And I watched the COs, move towards the situation, but they move to it at a pace that you kind of knew what they were doing. All right, this kid's taking care of business. We're going to delay this a little bit. And they ended up shipping that kid, the 18-year-old, who everyone loved. He ran the place. And when they were transferring him, so they put him on an isolation unit, the day the transport came, all the staff came down and said goodbye to this kid. He stood at the gate and said, if you all don't go back, I'm going to fire you. What are you doing? You just assaulted a kid. And so we all had hopes for this kid. We heard he gets out. He goes back down to the city. He's on the corner. Some kid disrespects him. He goes home, gets a gun, shoots and kills him. He's doing life in prison now.
What's the most frustrated you've been with military bureaucracy? My squad was down by sniper fire for 3 hours. When we finally made it back to base, I had 14 bullet holes in my body armor. Should have been a simple equipment replacement, right? Wrong. Supply sergeant looked at my shredded vest like I'd personally offended him. You need to fill out Form 3161 for damaged equipment replacement. But first, you need a statement from your commanding officer explaining how the damage occurred. Sergeant, I got shot at multiple times. The holes are bullet-sized. What other explanation do you need? He shrugged. Regulations are regulations. Could have been training damage, negligence, anything. I need official documentation. So I trudged to my platoon leader's office. Lieutenant Davis examined my vest, counted the holes, then sighed. I can write the statement, but I need a damage assessment report from the armorer first. Can't authorize replacement without proper documentation. The armorer, Staff Sergeant Williams, was even worse. Paperwork. How do we know this wasn't deliberate destruction of government property? I spent the next 2 days taking photographs, filling out forms, getting signatures from 5 different people. My damaged vest sat in a plastic bag while I wore a borrowed one that didn't fit properly. Then came the real nightmare, the supply chain. Your vest is a discontinued model, Supply informed me. Finally arrived. Wrong size, extra large instead of medium. Supply shrugged. Close enough. You can exchange it, but you'll need to start the paperwork process. I've been shot at 6 more times wearing the oversized, ineffective vest. My patience was gone. I marched straight to the company commander's office. Captain Martinez listened to my story, shook his head, then walked to supply himself. 10 minutes later, I had a properly fitting vest in the correct size. How did you do that? I asked. He smiled. I told him I'd personally ensure they spent the next month inventorying every piece of equipment on this base. Twice. Amazing how quickly bureaucracy moves when officers get involved. But the story doesn't end there. 3 months later, administrative specialist handed me a bill for $1,247. What's this for? Replacement cost for your damaged body armor. Finance says you never properly documented the damage, so it's being charged as a loss. I showed him the stack of paperwork I filled out. 17 different forms, 23 signatures, 47 photographs. He looked confused. This paperwork was filed incorrectly.
Why is finding the right look so hard? Almost as hard as
What's the most frustrated you've been with military bureaucracy? What's the funniest thing a new recruit? A terrorist on the plane suddenly took out a bomb and wanted to scare the man sitting next to him. But the man suddenly stood up, grabbed the terrorist by the collar, and yanked him out of his seat. Then he quickly opened the cabin door, said nothing, and just hugged the terrorist and jumped out of the plane from 10,000 meters in the air. The terrorist peed his pants on the spot. He wanted to beg mercy, but it was too late. The two of them were falling straight towards the ground at a speed of over 100 meters per second. Suddenly, a man in black jumped out of a helicopter and flew towards them. At this time, the bomb on the terrorist's body had started counting down. Just in the nick of time, the man in black finally arrived. He grabbed the terrorist and quickly dismantled the bomb.
What happened when you tried to cancel a dead person's gym membership? 3 weeks after burying my husband James, his gym was still charging his credit card and refused to cancel unless either he called them personally or I brought his death certificate in person to stop it. I explained I was staying with my mother 40 minutes away, but the manager said company policy required physical documentation for all death-related cancellations. I begrudgingly made the drive with the certificate, and he held it up to the light before shaking his head. This is just a photocopy. I need the original with the raised seal. I explained I only had 3 originals, were all in use for insurance and social security, but he pulled out a policy binder. There's also a $300 early termination fee since James signed our platinum commitment plan. I said my husband was literally dead from pancreatic cancer and couldn't finish his commitment. He just shrugged. The contract is non-refundable regardless of circumstances, including death. I returned the next day with an original certificate, but then he said he wanted James's driver's license and the original contract. You didn't mention those yesterday, I said, trying my hardest to stay calm. He smiled. You didn't ask about the complete requirements. I explained the funeral home had kept his license, but he just turned to his computer. Then I can't process this without photo verification. I held up the obituary and funeral photos. Corporate requires official photo ID. I almost